Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all for this afternoon session of day 2. I welcome the speaker of this session, Dr. Ravi Shankar sir, Senior Medical Advisor, NutriNorm Wellness Private Limited, Bangalore. His topic of presentation is clinical studies in herbal drug industry. So, as we are very much skeptical about the know-how of clinical trials when it is related to herbal drugs, we are very much acquainted with the clinical trials in relation to allopathic medicines. So, being into the field of herbal medicine, we still many of the topics are a gray area for us. So, I hope this session will be very much useful for us to enlighten ourselves area of clinical studies in herbal drugs. So, with this, I request Dr. K.S. Akki Madam to introduce the speaker of this session.
Good afternoon, everybody. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. M. Ravi Shankar, Herbal Pharmacology in Dravya Guna. He is a senior medical advisor and regulatory affair consultant. Now, Dr. Ravi Shankar, professionally an Ayurvedic physician and passionately a herbal researcher, graduated in his BAMS from NTR University of Health Sciences, Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh in the year 1998. He did his MD in herbal pharmacology, that is Dravya Guna, from ALNRM Ayurveda Medical College, Koppa, Chikkamangaluru, Karnataka in 2003. He also has a strong pharmaceutical, industrial, clinical research and academic background. He has also earned PG diploma in clinical research and postgraduate in Ayurvedic pharmacology. He is basically a quick learner with sharp analytical skills, which are useful in research and development. He has worked for more than 1.5 decades in the Ayurvedic herbal medicines, cosmetics, and food supplement industry. His knowledge and expertise into the industry is well respected and proven into the field of product and drug development, regulatory affairs, clinical research and preclinical research, manufacturing, packaging and designing, marketing, sales. Collectively, he is said to be providing all the required capabilities. He is an active participant and key opinion provided in the entire product development life cycle, starting from selection of ingredient or screening of herbs till to the post-marketing surveillance. Dedicated and experienced medical professional, he is serving the society since last 18 years, offering an insightful exposure and hands-on experience in pharmaceutical industries, clinical medicines, and academics. He has a strong industrial and academic background, earned PG diploma in clinical research and postgraduate in Ayurvedic pharmacology. He's a quick learner with sharp analytical skills that are useful in research and development. He possesses in-depth knowledge of clinical trials, information of the consent process, laboratory sampling, drug dispensing and accountability, SAE reporting, paper CRF, functioning of local regulatory bodies. He has an ability to prioritize, coordinate, and monitor teamwork and keep updated of new developments in the medical field by attending various camps, seminars, undertaking visits, and presenting papers. His key strengths include ability to understand the requirement of various regulatory authorities and executing based on their needs, ability to search scientific publications and analyze the quality of articles, a strong sense of responsibility with an ability to effectively handle assignments, good leadership qualities with an ability to build, develop, and motivate teams in delivering positive results, good written and verbal communications and interpersonal skills, good in adopting innovative methods at work. His areas of expertise and roles of responsibilities include: as a medical advisor, He has a concept development for new product development, that is especially herbal or herbo-mineral pharmaceutical products, cosmetic and personal care products, biotherapeutic target index, selection and shortlisting of herbs, active ingredients, general toxicity reporting for herbs, dose development based on Ayurvedic texts, source of active materials, that is herbal extract, and natural materials. As a regulatory consultant for Ayush FSSAI CDSCO Cosmetics, regulatory screening of shortlisted herbs include scheduled book references, literature data for substantiation, regulatory positioning of product under various categories like medicine or cosmetic or food supplement, query handling from regulatory bodies with respect to herbs and its indication, documentation for license application, part of dossier, both domestic registration and international registration, creating label content as per the applicable regulatory standards, claim development and substantiation. As a physician and clinician, his roles and responsibilities include clinical evaluation of the finished product, that is safety and efficacy, data integrity of clinical trials, product feedback trials, market complaints handling with respect to indications and efficacy, consumer support with respect to usage of products and drugs. As an operational management, source of RM or PM, ensuring sustainable resources, optimization of lead times, vendor audits. As a field force enablement, developing marketing tools like training aids, brokers, visuals, brochures, visual aids, etc., conducting CMEs and training of the field force. Now I present before you Dr. M. Ravi Shankar to talk on clinical studies in herbal drug industry. I welcome you once again, sir.
Thank you very much, madam, for your elaborate introduction about myself. Even though I'm not so, I'm very happy to be in this forum today for me to giving an opportunity to speak a very little knowledge which I have on clinical trials, especially the herbal drugs. Once again, I thank the organizers of KLE team for me to invite for this particular topic. So today I'm going to briefly explain about the clinical studies or clinical trials on herbal drugs. As the introductory speaker said, that this is a gray area and it's a little complex area when compared with the synthetic or allopathic drug molecules are being considered for clinical evaluation, because the vast herbal traditional knowledge and the quality systems and the chemical constituents, which is very making difficult for keeping the simple clinical trial procedures as applicable with the allopathic drugs. So now I will just start my session. Hope everybody is able to see this.
So we are not able to see the slides. You have opened the folder.
Okay, oh, it's a folder only is there. 1 second. Now, sir.
No, sir.
Not now.
No, 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 no. You need to share the slides. I mean, you need to minimize the folders. Okay, now it's visible.
Now it's visible. Okay, clinical studies in herbal drug industry is the title which the organizers have provided me to speak on this. So the definition of clinical trials, if you consider, any investigation in human subjects intended to discover or verify the clinical, pharmacological, and other pharmacodynamic effects of an investigational product, and or to identify any adverse reactions to an investigational product, or to study absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion, that is ADME studies of an investigational product with the object of ascertaining its safety and efficacy, will constitute the definition of clinical trial. Hope everybody is aware of this particular simple, important definition of clinical trial. So there are different phases in this clinical trial. Hope you are known of all these phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Whereas in case of phase 1, basically it is a human pharmacology studies. Phase 2, which includes therapeutic exploratory studies. Phase 3, therapeutic confirmatory. Phase 4, post-marketing surveillance studies. So then, after looking into the other aspect of our presentation today, which is clinical trials, herbal drugs. So what is herbal drug? So herbal drug, the definition according to WHO, that is World Health Organization, has defined herbal medicines as finished labeled medicinal product that contain an active ingredient, either it may be aerial part of the plant or underground part of the plant or any other plant material, either material alone or different combination of herbal plant materials. All together is considered as a herbal product or herbal drug. According to a report, WHO, about 80% of the world population is reported to rely on traditional medicines for their primary healthcare needs. So even in the developed countries, the complementary or alternative medicines gaining popularity. So what is the need of clinical trials of herbal drugs? So herbal drugs or herbal medicines and other traditional pharmacological therapies are widespread use throughout the world. So such widespread usage suggests but does not assure the traditional medicines have favorable risk-benefit ratio. So rather than the traditional medicines may be regarded as a rich source of potentially attractive therapeutic agents. So the actual benefits and risk remains to be evaluated by clinical trials supported and conducted according to the principles of modern clinical science. This is the need of clinical trials in herbal drugs. So herbal drugs or herbal products, when we look into the current regulatory scenario in India across the market, what sort of different type of herbal products or herbal medicines are available, if we try to categorize or look into the lens of a regulatory perspective, we will come to know three categories basically. The first, Ayush products, which is called Ayurvedic, Unani, Yoga, Siddha and homeopathic medicines, together called as Ayush, which is being controlled by Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940 and Drugs and Cosmetics Rules 1945, which is an independent body depends under Ministry of Ayush, which regulates the Ayurvedic products in India. And there is, we will speak in depth about the Ayush products in subsequent slides. So the next category or the next area where you are going to involve or see with herbal products are phytopharmaceuticals. Of late, this is a very new regulation which has been introduced again by Drugs and Cosmetics Act and rules under CDSCO, which is also taking care or issuing permissions to market the herbal ingredient based drugs called phytopharmaceuticals, which we are going to discuss in depth in later parts. And there is another category where the herbs are being sold in Indian market under regulations of FSSAI, that is Food Safety Standards Authority of India, especially under the category of food for special medicinal use or novel foods or food for special dietary purpose. Also, there are nutraceuticals which are being marketed by FSSAI authorities. So hope you are going to see the different kind of nutraceutical supplements over the counter for different kind of purposes, which are being issued by FSSAI. Of late, during the pandemic time, you are going to, I mean, you might have seen a lot of medicaments which are loaded with the turmeric being considered as a nutraceutical for immune booster is being marketed widely in Indian scenario. So they have been registered under FSSAI regulatory authority. So by and large, these are the three different regulatory bodies which allow to use herbal ingredient in the manufacturing of drugs or cosmetics. So where we need to look into what is the regulatory scenario and what would be the relevance of clinical trials with these three particular category. So first we are going to see under which regulatory body any of the herbal substance which is being sold in the market, either with the category or under the tagline of Ayush, that is Ayurvedic medicine, or it may be a phytopharmaceutical ingredient, or it may be a nutraceutical or functional food or dietary supplement. So these are the only three labeled products which are sold across the market. So if we look into what exactly is this particular category and what sort of clinical trials are required to get to the regulatory approval to market these things, that we are going to discuss in subsequent presentation. So Ayush, first and foremost, majority of the herbal products which are being available in Indian market are being sold under Ayurvedic regulatory approvals. So Ayurvedic regulatory approvals are being given from the state government, Department of Ayush, ruled by state government of respective states. For example, in Karnataka, the government of Karnataka, which is controlling the Ayush body, of course, the rules and the regulations are laid down by the Central Ayush Board, where the Ministry of Ayush will monitor the activity of state government. So what exactly is Ayush? So a lot is known about the use of plant or its extract in ancient Ayurveda, Siddha or Unani literature, or plant may actually be regularly used by physicians or traditional system of medicines for a number of years. So the substances which are being clinically evaluated for same indication for which being used or has been described in the text. In sometimes when an extract of plant or compound is isolated from the plant, which has to be clinically evaluated for its therapeutic efficacy, not originally described in the text of traditional system, or method of preparation is different, or it has to be treated for a new substance or new chemical entity and the same type, acute, subacute, chronic toxicity, genotoxicity, reproductive toxicity, etc., are required for regulatory authorities before giving it for clinical approval. So what are the various kind of Ayurvedic products available in the market? So if you go to any Ayurvedic physician or any Ayurvedic retail shop or any Ayurvedic medicine store, you are going to find different kind of products which are being kept sold. So in that, you are going to find different kind of products of herbal drugs which are available or permitted to market in and under Ayurvedic category. The first and foremost category is called as classical Ayurvedic medicines or generic Ayurvedic medicines. The examples for generic medicines or classical Ayurvedic preparations are Triphala Churna or Ashwagandha Rasayana or Amruta Rishta or any kind of classical medicine, generic medicine, which has been told in Ayurvedic pharmacopoeias or Ayurvedic textbooks, which are approved in Schedule 1 of Drugs and Cosmetics Act, if they prepare in similar lines how they have mentioned, and if they use in the same format, and if they dispense for the same disease, then those things will be coming under the purview of classical Ayurvedic medicine. For example, simple preparation called Triphala Churna, if you consider, Triphala Churna is considered as a classical Ayurvedic medicine. On the tagline, you can find written Triphala Churna as Ayurvedic medicine. This particular thing is being prepared by 3 ingredients like Phyllanthus emblica and Terminalia cebula and Terminalia biliaca with the fruit pulp powder, and it should be given for the diseases of diabetes, constipation, eye diseases, and general detox, etc., as mentioned in the traditional Ayurvedic pharmacopoeial books. And it also supposed to be named as Triphala Churna only. Then this particular drug is being categorized or permitted to market and further activity. That is the classical Ayurvedic preparation under first category of Ayush approval. The second is patent and proprietary medicines, which are being majoritarily available in Ayurvedic category. So the patent and proprietary medicines, which are being formulated with one of the, which all the ingredients which are available mentioned in Schedule 1 books, with different combinations, with the different dosages for different indications. Those are called patent proprietary medicines. For example, simple patent proprietary medicine of Ayurveda, you consider the most popular drug is called Leaf 52. So Leaf 52 is a Ayurvedic proprietary medicine which is being patented by the manufacturers and which contains close to 7 to 8 different ingredients. Of course, all the ingredients are available in Ayurvedic literature and have been mentioned for disorders of liver and its utility. And they have taken the ingredient from there and they have blended and they have given a recipe called proprietary recipe with a brand name. Whereas the generic name will have generic names like, when generic preparations will have generic names like Ashwagandha Rasayana, Triphala Churna or Amrutarishta kind. Whereas patent proprietary Ayurvedic medicines will have different brand names like Leaf 52, Stress Calm, or a kind of different names. The third category, why I'm telling all these particular categories means the relevancy for herbal drug ingredients and clinical trials are being postulated in drugs and cosmetics rules. That is the reason, before looking into the requirement, if you look briefly about the 5 broader categories of Ayurvedic products, that would be more informative and more precise for to decide on herbal drugs, especially Ayurvedic drugs for clinical trials. The third category is Balya Poshak, also called as positive health promoters. So these are all a kind of food supplements or positive health promoter, can be given for maintenance of health, can also be obtained under Ayush. Like simple Ashwagandha tablet can be considered as a positive health promoter for stress. A simple Tribulus terrestris, that is Gokshura tablet, can be considered as for hormonal problems. So like for positive health promoters given in a healthy conditions, also being categorized under Ayush under the category Balya Poshak. The fourth one is Ghana Sattva or herbal extracts. So again here the single ingredient in an extract form is also being incorporated and categorized under Ayush. And the last one is the Saundarya Prasada, which are being considered as Ayush cosmetics. So nowadays, entire industry of cosmetics is turning towards the natural sources of cosmetic preparations, especially when the people are very much scared about the harsh chemical synthetic excipients or harsh chemicals which are being used for cosmetic industry. People are having a positive trend towards the natural ingredient for their cosmetic purposes. Either it may be organic ingredient or it may be herbal extract, which is being added for a cosmetic. All these things will come under the category of Ayush cosmetics. So now we'll come back to the topic of clinical trials and their requirements for the Ayurvedic products or herbal products. Because the title what the management or the college administration have chosen is herbal drugs. As such, herbal drugs, no regulatory body is there. herbal drugs broadly categorized into three. One is Ayush, second is phytopharmaceuticals, third is food supplements. So according to give the broader perspective about the regulatory requirement and the clinical trial requirement, I myself have categorized these are the three possible the routes or the agencies or the regulatory bodies wherein the products are being given a regulatory approval following the clinical trial guidelines. So now if we look into the Ayurvedic ingredients or Ayurvedic drugs which require clinical trials. So in Drugs and Cosmetics Act Rule 158B, there is a clear mentioning about the requirement of proof of effectiveness. So you're able to see under the column 6, published literature, proof of effectiveness. Proof of effectiveness can be interpreted as clinical trial. So here in the first category, Ayurvedic drugs, that is 3A. So these being considered as generic medicines. For generic medicines, if the indications are as per text, the ingredients are as per text, safety studies are not required, published literature if it is required, and proof of effectiveness is not required. That means to say the clinical trials are not required for to prove Triphala Churna is relieves constipation or Ashwagandha Rasayana will rejuvenate the body. For such a kind of claim, no clinical trials are required. The second category, as I mentioned, 3A, under 3A, same Ayurvedic classical medicine, if the indications are same type, same this thing, the clinical trials are not required. So if the indications, that is the patent proprietary medicines, the clinical trial proof of effectiveness is required. That is the new indication. That means to say I am exploring the new indication here. So the patent proprietary medicine, the indications are textual rationale. So if leaf 52 ingredients are mentioned anywhere in liver diseases in the textual books like Ayurvedic books, pilot study as relevant, as per relevant for protocol for Ayurveda Siddha Ayurvedic drugs, which is again postulated by GMP standards or CCRAs, which has been set the guidelines to conduct clinical trials. Accordingly, we are supposed to carry out the pilot scale and we have to submit before getting the approval. And the same Ayurvedic drugs, if it is having any ingredient mentioned in Schedule E1 of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. Schedule E1 is the schedule where the Ayurvedic ingredients which are poisonous in nature, for example, Datura metal, Strychnos nux vomica, or Calotropis procera, or Abrus pectorius, or any such a kind of poisonous substance like Papaver somniferum or Cannabis sativa, any of such poisonous drugs are being incorporated in a Ayurvedic recipe or Ayurvedic formulation. So even though the indications are existing indication, the proof of effectiveness is required. The reason, because it is toxic in nature. Any drug which is having even the heavy metals and minerals being used also should be substantiated for its clinical efficacy, proof of effectiveness. And as I mentioned, the other two categories like Balya Poshak, that is the medicine or the health promoters or the supplements which are being given in Ayush category. For textual indications, the safety effective study is not required. That means to say, for health supplements, there is no requirement of clinical trial. Similarly, for cosmetic preparations, if the indications are same, the effectiveness is not required. For example, if mehendi is being used as a hair dye or hair coloring agent, or if aloe vera is being used as a skin conditioning agent, the clinical trials for such cosmetic preparations are not required as per the Drugs and Cosmetics Act regulations. And the last category which is being given under Ayush medicines is the herbal extracts of medicinal plants, either it may be dry or wet. So we call this as Aushadh Ghan in Ayurvedic regulatory language. So here also they have given certain liberations or certain kind of laxity with respect to the proof of effectiveness. If I am going to prepare an extract from ashwagandha, that is Withania somnifera, if it is an aqueous extract, the proof of effectiveness is not required, considering aqueous extract is safe. Similarly, hydroalcoholic extract, if I'm using, the safety efficacy is not required. But if I am using this hydroalcoholic or aqueous extract for different indications other than mentioned in the textual rationale, then the novel indications, novel applications, then the efficacy is required. So similarly, the other solvent other than hydro or hydroalcoholic, irrespective of the indication or irrespective of the utility of the herbal extract. For example, if I am going to use the ashwagandha supercritical extraction, or if I'm ashwagandha chloroform extraction or ashwagandha methanolic extraction, if I am doing, all the safety studies and proof of effectiveness are required, considering the toxicity or considering the seriousness of the solvent which is being used. This is about the herbal extracts, herbal Ayurvedic generic medicines, and health promoters and cosmetic ingredients or cosmetic preparations coming under herbal drugs or herbal cosmetics with respect to the clinical trials requirement or not. Hope this is clear. So what is the difference between synthetic and herbal ingredients? So unlike standard chemically defined drugs, herbal products have often had substantial human use prior to clinical trial evaluation. So everybody knows about Tinospora, that is Amrutballi or Guruchi or Gokshura or Shunti or Pipali. It has been used since centuries. So these are all standards. Chemically defined drugs are different. To capitalize on the use of this information in protocols to evaluate these products, it is important that chemistry, manufacturing, and control, broadly we can call as CMC, of the product to be used mimics that of the traditionally used formulations. So polyherbal formulations and multiple constituents. So being the pharmacognosy or phytochemistry department of your pharmaceutical sciences, so unlike conventional drugs, herbal products are mixtures of at least partially uncharacterized constituents. A single plant contains different chemical constituents, and when we make a recipe with the three different plants, we don't know what exactly all constitutes. So it is postulated that being a mixture of provides a therapeutic advantage in that unknown constituents may combine in an additive or synergistic fashion with known constituents to provide more efficacy than would be provided by the known constituent alone. So it is simply the rationality behind making a recipe with polyherbal drugs. So obviously, to get an additive or synergistic fashion, the traditional acharyas or Ayurvedic doctors or Ayurvedic vaidyas have been made this kind of polyherbal combination, not only for synergistic fashion, but also certain drugs will act as bioavailable enhancers. Some will help as reducing the additive effect, reducing the toxicity effect or counter acting for certain sharp effects. Also, certain herbs are being added in a recipe. So thus, evaluation of herbal products does not require attempts to purify the medicines down to known or otherwise single chemical constituents. So what is the herbal substance and herbal product according to WHO, that is World Health Organization? So herbal substance is a description of the plant or genus or species or a cultivar where it is applicable and which region it has been produced and where is the country of origin and what is the time of harvest, parts to be harvested, along with the plant processing, that is drying, mechanical disruption, solvent extraction, analytical procedure, specification. All these things are mandate whenever I am proposing a herbal substance before to the regulatory body for a clinical trial. And similarly, a herbal product is combination of herbal substances. Amount of active ingredient present in that particular herbal substance need to be highlighted along with the list of excipients and the type of product, whether it may be a tablet, a capsule, or how it is being manufactured, the method of manufacturing, and especially the analysis of active ingredients and chemical biological parameters and chemical constitution, analytical marker compounds and fingerprint analytical markers, analysis of lack of contamination, pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals. All these data I am supposed to provide before getting a regulatory approval for clinical trial. So the requirements for such trials for herbal drug clinical trials. So information on the herbal product proposed for phase 1-2 studies. So the phase 1-2 trials are performed on few subjects under tight medical supervision. So while details on specification and quality control of the product used for the trials are required, GMP standards for chemistry, manufacturing, control process in general may not be required at this particular stage. So phase 1 studies are designed to determine the safety associated with increasing dose in normal volunteers or as a precursor to phase 2, phase 3 trials. In addition, one second. So in addition, phase 1 studies investigate toxicity and drug levels in states in which drug levels might be altered. So mechanism of action also investigated in phase 1. So phase 2 studies are to evaluate the efficacy of range of dosages in individual with the disease. So phase 2 studies typically start by evaluating the maximum tolerated dose determined in prior to phase 1 normal volunteer studies. So if this is the dose is effective, dose ranging downwards would be investigated. If the phase 1 dose is ineffective, it is possible that the higher doses will demonstrate efficacy and only mild intolerance. So dose ranging upwards may be performed in phase 2. Phase 2 dose ranging studies utilize a relatively small number of patients per dosage group, and placebo standard intervention groups may be included. If surrogate markers rather than disease endpoints are used in phase 2 studies, it may be necessary to repeat dose ranging in phase 3 trials also with more valid reason and endpoints about the safety parameters. Phase 3 trials are performed on a larger number of patients and are often carried out prior to registration and general use. So therefore, GMP standards are needed prior to phase 3 trials. So in practice means the performing generally the same procedure for phase 1-2, but more extensively with more stringent oversight are being carried out in phase 3 trials. So additional requirements of statement that the plant cultivated according to the GACP, that is good agricultural and cultivational practices, or harvesting according to good wildcrafting practices are mandatory to ensure before going to phase 3. As phase 3 studies are expanded trials for safety and efficacy, so they are performed after preliminary evidences suggesting the efficacy for the intervention has been obtained and are intended to gather the additional information about the efficacy and safety that is needed to evaluate the overall benefit risk of the intervention and provide adequate basis for general clinical use. So generally phase 3 usually include large number, several hundred to several thousands of subjects, may involve human population with broader entrance characteristic than were used in phase 2 trials, and involve statistical comparison of the intervention to standard or placebo interventions. What exactly WHO recommendations regarding the clinical trials of herbal drugs? There is a guideline which has been mentioned. Phase 1 studies, normal volunteers are generally unnecessary for herbal traditional medicines. This is the WHO recommendation. Phase 1 trials for herbal substances or herbal drugs is not necessary. The substantial prior human use of traditional dose regimen of herbal medicine generally conveys reasonable confidence that this regimen can safely administered to small number or carefully monitored in clinical subjects in phase 2 trials also. So although data from prior human experience may suggest confidence in the clinical safety of the product, the important to verify tolerance in phase 2 patients is highlighted here. So both the literature review and the provisions in the protocol to be performed should focus on complete review of clinical safety parameters. So safety parameters with respective to different neurological systems, different organ systems need to be observed and followed in phase two studies. Example like neurological, we need to find out any neurological symptoms are observed after administering need to be observed as a safety parameter. When it comes to skin and integumentary system, the clinical evidence of lack of any sort of allergic reactions need to be monitored or observed as a safety parameter in phase 2. And when you look into musculoskeletal system, lack of arthritis or myalgia or normal values of CPK need to be observed in musculoskeletal. And in the gastrointestinal system, the clinical evidences of tolerability need to be observed. And in hepatology or liver, the normal values of liver enzymes like SGOT, SGPT, alkaline phosphatase, and total bilirubin need to be observed as a safety parameter. And if you look into the renal system, the normal values of blood urea, nitrogen, and creatinine need to be observed as a safety parameter. And if you look into the endocrine and metabolic system, we need to look into the serum electrolytes like sodium, potassium, calcium, and normal values of albumin and total protein, uric acid, etc. need to be observed. And cardiovascular safety parameters, everybody should monitor the blood pressure and normal ECG to be followed before and after the particular study or during the study. And hemopoietic system, normal values of complete hemoglobin and complete blood count need to be looked into. And additionally, apart from the above systems, more intensive investigation of any organ system likely to be particularly affected by the product need to be observed. And other recommendations of WHO in phase 2, if the population has broader entrance characteristics compared to the population of prior trials, the favorable safety profile shown for constricted populations in prior trials may be or may not be conveyed to the broader populations in phase 3 trials. So the arguments that product is likely to be safe in the broader population should be stated, and the phase 3 protocol should include retesting of the safety parameters also. So another reason for retesting safety parameter in phase 3 trials is the greater chance of identifying the rare adverse events with the larger number of patients used in phase 3. That is the only objective why safety is being observed as an additional parameter in phase 3 also. The preliminary efficacy data from phase 2 trials, evidences from dose ranging trials that chosen the dosing regimen is likely to be optimum regimen with respect to safety and efficacy. And important is the application of pharmacodynamics of herbal drugs. If you look into that, invariably the applications of pharmacodynamics will be landing on any of these following 3 scenarios. So what exactly is the pharmacodynamic applications? Like herbal drugs whose efficacies have been demonstrated, their active principles are known and their doses are more or less established. These are proven herbal drugs. Efficacy have been established. And the second scenario, herbal drugs whose efficacies are probable but have not been clearly demonstrated. So their active agents may be used as a standardized them. That is one object. And herbal drugs with uncertain efficacies but a long history of traditional usage, such drugs can be used for treating common disorder but should be used exactly as in the traditional practice what they have mentioned and highlighted. And what are the ethical considerations for the clinical trials which are being postulated in the scenario? Herbal drugs or the herbal substance. All the fundamental ethical principles of human participation in research apply equally to herbal remedies and research involving in these compounds. That means to say there are no different kind of ethical consideration for clinical research in herbal drugs when compared with the synthetic or allopathic drugs. So consent must be obtained, subject selection must be equitable, risk and benefits must be weighed and must be favorable to potential participant, and experimental design must be sound. These are the ethical considerations. And what the DCGI says on herbal drugs. So in 1993, the guidelines for the safety and efficacy of herbal medicines developed by an expert committee directed that general procedures laid down by Office of the Drug Controller General of India for allopathic drugs should be followed for all traditional or herbal products to enter into clinical trials for any therapeutic condition. That means to say this is the clear statement that all traditional herbal products are equally applicable or equally focused or equally correlated with the allopathic drugs which are going for clinical trials is the clear title which the DCGI has explained. Once the animal studies are over, the herbal medicines are studied. Herbal medicines are studied on human beings with compliance to GCP, Good Clinical Practice Guidelines. So for the herbal remedies and medicinal plants that are to be clinically evaluated, use the allopathic system and which may later be used in allopathic hospitals, the procedures laid down by the Office of DCGA for allopathic drugs should be followed. That means to say, if a drug of a herbal origin is supposed to practice in allopathic system of medicine, it has to be evaluated in allopathic guidelines. That is what they want to communicate. So the CTRI, that is Clinical Trial Registry in India, registration of trials will ensure transparency, accountability, and accessibility of the trials. So the mission of CTRI, the Clinical Trials Registry in India, is to encourage all clinical trials conducted in India to be prospectively registered. That is before the enrollment of the first participant. The Clinical Trial Registry India CTRI is launched in 20th July 2007 and is being managed by the ICMR, the National Institute of Medical Statistics, New Delhi, India. And the good clinical practices should be applied to all stages of clinical trials to ensure that the quality and ethical requirements for clinical studies are met. It is expected that a traditional practitioner familiar with the product proposed for investigation be an integral member of the protocol development team where those traditional practitioners exist. This will give an importance stating that an Ayurvedic physician is supposed to be a part of the investigation, either as a co-investigator in any clinical trial where herbal substances or Ayurvedic drugs are being explored. For all clinical trials, biostatisticians should be consulted to ensure that the sample size is sufficient to satisfy the primary endpoint or the objective. This is about the clinical trials of herbal drugs of Ayush and other. So the next category of herbal drugs after Ayush is the phytopharmaceuticals. Phytopharmaceuticals, these differ from Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, ASU therapies as a phytopharmaceutical as defined under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. These ASU therapies fall under Ministry of Ayush, whereas phytopharmaceuticals are regulated by Central Drug Standards Control Organization. Phytopharmaceuticals are promising new area within the pharmaceutical industry set to experience greater attention both from domestic as well as foreign players. In India, consumers have already been displaying a long-standing demand for Ayurvedic and herbal remedies. However, now are shifting towards demanding more evidence-based approach remedies. So this is why where phytopharmaceuticals are well positioned to cater this particular demand and offers tremendous growth potential in upcoming time. The phytopharmaceuticals are the newer class of drugs, including enriched fraction containing at least 4 specific chemical markers with 1 biomarker. This category provides the way forward for the plant-based enriched fraction to be used as a drug, which is not a part of Ayurvedic literature. So here, one thing I just would like to tell, the ingredient may be an Ayurvedic, but the enrichment process, the fractionation and the standardization and the isolation, that is the different activity. Hence, it is being considered as phytopharmaceutical. It has been very important to know chemical composition and quantity of pharmacologically active ingredient in the formulation. So this new class of drug may encourage interest in demand plant-based therapeutics for unmet medicinal needs professionally, unlike conventional pharmaceuticals, which they suspect everything, and Ayush medicines trust everything. So the phytopharmaceutical is a balanced approach which trusts everything but underlines the revalidation of the specification of plant material. This is considered to be most standardized format of botanical ingredients. The phytopharmaceuticals, the provision of synthetic drugs are not appropriate or relevant for botanical based products. So in evaluation, whatever the provisions which are being synthetic drugs are being adopted, which cannot be appropriate or relevant for botanical based products. Taking this point into consideration, CDSCO defined and set different guidelines on preparation of phytopharmaceutical drugs as the need of the science-based drug from botanicals of traditional medicine, which has been long history but not properly documented. So generally, the herbal drugs are poorly regulated and controlled by health authorities. So the efforts are made for analytical control standardization of the component of therapeutical self-medication. Safe medication. Sorry. Phytopharmaceutical drugs is defined as purified form and standardized fraction with defined minimum 4 bioactive pharmaceutical compounds, as I mentioned earlier, qualitatively and quantitatively assessed of an extract of a medicinal plant or its a part for internal or external use of human beings or animals for diagnosis, treatment, mitigation, or prevention of any disease or disorder, but does not include administration parenteral route, except injectables. Any of the plant material, if you are going to make an extraction and if you are going to assess qualitatively, quantitatively, minimum four bioactive phytochemical compounds and one biomarker compound, that is going to be eligible as a phytopharmaceutical ingredient or a drug under the Gazette notification of drugs and cosmetics in 2015. So the phytopharmaceutical requires for approval to satisfy the clinical trials mentioned in Schedule Y of Drugs and Cosmetics Act, where a new Appendix 1B has added into the Schedule Y of Drugs and Cosmetics Act, which describes or which highlights the data to be submitted along with the application to conduct clinical trial are important. I import or manufacture any phytopharmaceutical drug in the country. The regulatory requirements of new drug applications, NDA, for the phytopharmaceutical drug include standard requirements for new drug safety and pharmacological information, human studies, and confirmatory clinical trials. All these things are necessary under Schedule Y of Drugs and Cosmetics Act to get a regulatory approval for phytopharmaceutical ingredient. So the phytopharmaceutical and the clinical trials, a brief description, summary of the phytopharmaceutical drug, botanical name, the plant, the including vernacular scriptural name and formulation, route of administration, dosages, therapeutic class for which it is being indicated, the claims to be made for the phytopharmaceutical product are all need to be disclosed or need to be mentioned in the application of clinical trial. So the Schedule Y of Drugs and Cosmetics Act, published literature, including the information of the plant or product or phytopharmaceutical drug, or as a traditional medicine or as a ethnomedicine, and provide reference books to other documents regarding composition. That means to say the available literature related to that particular botanical ingredient, if it is available in the public domain or if it is there with the sponsor or the manufacturer, need to be captured as a data and need to be submitted to the drugs controlling authority. So the information or any contraindications, side effects mentioned in traditional medicines or ethnomedicines, those are also need to be captured. Published scientific reports in respect to of safety pharmacological studies relevant for the phytopharmaceutical drug intended to be marketed to be mentioned. And where the process and usages are similar or same product known for traditional medicine, ethnomedicine, or where the process usage is different from the known traditional use need to be captured. And information on any contraindications, side effects mentioned are reported of in any of the studies. Information on side effects, adverse reactions reported during the current usage of the phytopharmaceutical in the last 3 years. Wherever applicable, we are supposed to give the information to the regulatory authorities in order to obtain the clinical trial or approvals. So present usage of phytopharmaceutical drug to establish history of usage, provide details of the product, manufacturer, quantum sold, extent of exposure on human population, and number of years for which the product is being sold to be disclosed the information. And in vitro genotoxicity data, and dermal toxicity for topical preparations, teratogenicity study if it a phytopharmaceutical drug is intended during the pregnancy, and all human study data need to be submitted in order to obtain the regulatory approval. So, so here the information comes: clinical trials for phytopharmaceutical drugs to be conducted as per applicable rules and guidelines for new drugs. For all phytopharmaceutical drugs, data from phase 1 to determine maximum tolerance dose and associated toxicities and the protocol shall be submitted prior to performing the studies. So the data of result dose finding studies performed and the protocol shall be submitted prior to performing the studies, provided that in case of phytopharmaceutical drug already marketed for more than 5 years, or where there is adequate published evidence regarding the safety of the phytopharmaceutical drug, the study may be abbreviated, modified, or relaxed. This is about the requirement related to the clinical trials for phytopharmaceutical drug, which is the second category of herbal drugs in our topic. So there are three herbal drugs or three classification of herbal drugs we can consider. One is Ayush, second one is phytopharmaceuticals, and the third one is the functional foods, herbs, which are being regulated by Food Safety Standards Authority of India. So there are nutraceutical supplements which are being sold under functional foods category: food for special dietary use, food for special medicinal purpose, food for the nutraceutical supplements. All these herbal ingredients which are being incorporated in a pharmaceutical dosage forms being sold as functional foods regulated by FSSAI. So, I mean, truly speaking, in regulatory scenario, in when compared with Southeast Asian country regulations or the other regulatory bodies in the globe, so the difference from the ingredient perspective to categorize about a substance, whether it belongs to a food or drug, the Indian regulations are not so stringent or not so clear. Simple, for example, if you consider the Southeast Asian regulations for food supplements, there a particular dose piper longum is a food. Beyond that dose, piper longum or piper nigrum is a drug. Similarly, ginger also. And a particular dose, ginger as a food ingredient. But if the dosage is being increased or standardized or more modified, it is being considered as a functional ingredient or a drug or a herbal traditional medicine. So such a kind of demarcation is not very clear in Indian regulatory scenario. That is what I want to communicate to the forum. So the third category where the clinical trials relevance, if we come across, because this is not a regulatory forum or regulatory discussion. So the clinical trials with respect to the herbal drugs, if we consider, the third category comes as functional foods, wherein there is a category called non-specified foods or food ingredients. For such a kind of product, approval done by FSSAI requires clinical trials. So what does non-specified food or food ingredient means? Food products are ingredients that are neither standardized nor fully fall under proprietary food category as mentioned under FSSAI regulations are called NSF or FI. So novel foods, what food categories this regulation covers? Novel food category. So these regulations broadly cover following articles of food or food ingredients: novel food or novel food ingredient processed with use of novel technology, new additives, new processing aids including enzymes, articles of food ingredients consisting of isolated from microorganisms, bacteria, yeast, fungi or algae, or any other non-specified food. So if any food preparation or any supplement preparation which is being made with the above category of ingredients, definitely which is coming under the category of novel food. Novel food or food ingredient is a food or food ingredient that may not have a history of human consumption or may have any ingredient used in which or the source from which is derived may not have a history of human consumption, or a food ingredient obtained by new technology with innovative engineering process where the process may be given rise to significant change in the composition or structure or size of the food or food ingredient, which may alter the nutritional value, metabolism, or level of undesirable substances, will constitute novel food ingredient. So such novel food ingredients where the safety data from Indian population will not be available, the FBO, that is Food and Beverages Order Operator, shall have to conduct clinical trials in consonance with the guidelines stipulated in the ICMR, including ethical clearance. That means to say, which clearly says if a novel food is being made with herbal ingredients or additive or a component in that, that also need to be evaluated or studied for its safety and efficacy under ICMR guidelines with a proper ethical clearance. This is what this particular regulation speaks on the requirement of clinical trial with novel ingredients or novel food ingredients. So this is about the third category, the food, functional food, novel foods, and dietary supplements requirement of clinical trials, and the other phytopharmaceutical drugs and the Ayush drugs. So with this, I would like to conclude a simple presentation or a simple lecture on the broader topic called clinical trials on herbal drugs. I hope I have I did justice to the 1 hour. Before that, there are few more things are there which I would like to tell. What is the need of clinical trial and what are the challenges of clinical trials? I hope the organizers do have. Can I take 5 more minutes?
Yes, sir. You have another half an hour.
Okay. So what is the need of clinical trials? So herbal products have become an important or indispensable part of public healthcare around the world. So the various surveys on traditional and alternative medicine have highlighted their widespread use. However, in order to further widen their forum of acceptance, clinical trials of these herbal products should be encouraged, because the Western science or the Western world is not accepting the hardcore Ayurvedic ingredients or herbal drugs from the India when compared with our counterpart, the traditional medicine, the traditional Chinese medicine is having a larger area of play in the European market and the Western markets, whereas we are unable to get the share from that particular market because of more evidences, lack of standardizations kind of thing. So to prove the efficacy of in clinical trials, it is advised to use single or consistent batch to batch formulations. Although herbal practitioners and believers do not require clinical trials, but for its larger scale endorsement and survival at the international market alongside the modern medicines, it has become need of the hour. And similarly, when there is a need, when there is a requirement, there are few challenges which one should be observed or vigilant and try to solve these particular challenges in the herbal drugs and clinical trials. The research on herbal drugs possesses several challenges that need to be addressed, because being the natural products, there are quite a good number of challenges are there in this particular food industry. I mean, the herbal industry. Because of geographical variations or because of climatic changes, because of seasonal changes, or because of hybrid and cultivated varieties of plant medicines and all. So there are huge number of challenges with respect to the standardization of the botanical ingredient. Simple example, if you can take the rice you are going to get at 20 rupees kilo, 10 rupees kilo, similarly 50 rupees kilo. So where exactly we need to standardize, how we can standardize this particular the substance or the ingredient. Standardization of botanical drugs at the starting stage only. So this includes issues such as challenges related to clinical trials. We'll speak at this juncture. So the challenges include issues such as those related to the financial, ethical, product standardization, quality control, the design of the study, and the regulatory requirements before filing an investigational new drug for conducting large phase 3 trials need to be looked. In 2005, World Health Organization issued operational guidelines regarding regulatory requirements needed to support clinical trials of herbal products. WHO has taken an initiation and made some simple reforms and further guidelines for this particular clinical trials on herbal drugs. The first challenge is inclusion criteria. So it is advocated that inclusion criteria can be based on either on modern medicine or herbal medicine diagnosis. So the diagnosis is a different perspective. So a herbal drug and an Ayurvedic drug, if I want to evaluate, so the diagnosis with respect to Ayurvedic perspective is a different, and the modern medical diagnosis is different. Even though the clinical manifestations are different, are the same, the nomenclature of the diagnosis is different. So the understanding of the disease, hence the disease criteria can be different in herbal and modern medicinal approach. So therefore, it is difficult to define inclusion and exclusion criteria, and hence to generate a homogeneous group of subjects as per the diagnosis of herbal medicine. So for this, Jonas and Linde have devised a double classification method wherein the subjects are primarily diagnosed using both modern diagnostic criteria and then are classified according to traditional system. So the treatments are given according to the traditional classification and outcomes evaluated by criteria for both the system. Because it need to be accepted in both the system, the evaluation is done by both the system, and the assessment evaluation can be done by clinical traditional system. So the second challenge is randomization and placebo. So it is believed that randomization may eliminate the practice of preferences given to the subjects to select a treatment of their choice. But Brevin and Bradley thereby proposed an approach called partial randomization, whereby patients are asked about their choice and are given treatment preference of their choice, while those who do not express preferences are randomized. In randomized clinical trials, blinding is a gold standard. Everybody is aware of that. And that eliminates bias and isolates placebo effects. RCTs are usually double-blinded, which means neither the investigator nor the subject knows about the treatment allotted. But in case of herbal medicines, it is impossible to maintain double-blind, as herbal treatment involves multi-dimensional treatment approach involving counseling, listening, explaining, lifestyle, and dietary advices, as well as prescribing herbal medicines. So here in this particular case, double-blind is impossible. Therefore, a single blind can be done in such interventions whether the investigator but not the patient knows the treatment allocated for that subject. The other challenge is controlling. So another challenge involved in randomized clinical trial of herbal drugs is the selection of controls. Controls are selected in such a way that they closely match with the intervention group as a comparator. Similarity is essential if the trial is intended to provide the evidence of a specific effect of herbal medicine. So the control should be standardized for the factors such as color, odor, duration, frequency of intake, credibility of the treatment to the patient, and physical situation which treatment is administered. However, in certain natural product situations, controlling is difficult. A natural product such as ginger, which is having a peculiar odor, selecting a matching control which similar to ginger is a uphill task. This is another challenge which we are supposed to overcome. And these are the three challenges which we need to identify. And if we look into the International Council for Harmonization of Technical Requirements for Pharmaceutical for Human Use, that is ICH guidelines, integrated addendum to ICH E6R1, which are being categorized for guidelines for good clinical practice, E6R2. So they also have postulated the good clinical practices across, and they endorse the WHO recommendations for this kind of thing. And they haven't mentioned anything specifically to herbal drugs as a investigating subject. So whatever the GCP practices are there, ICH GCP guidelines need to be followed. And if anywhere the WHO recommendations are there, we are supposed to follow this kind of this thing. So just explored the ICH guidelines also. So if anything specifically is mentioned or relaxed or given considerations related to the herbal drugs, which is not there. So this is all about the vast topic called clinical trials, herbal drugs industry. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for patient hearing. And any questions, I will try to answer. Thank you.
Yes, please. The session is open for discussion. If any delegates have a question, they can unmute their mics and please go ahead. Sir, please exit the screen sharing.
Now gone?
No,
I think now it's gone.
yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, any questions, please? Sir, I have a question. I don't know whether it fits into this context or no.
Yes, sir.
If any crude drug which is sold as a nutraceutical,
Sir.
if it is sold in the form of a powder,
Mhm.
then it doesn't fall into the regulatory aspects, doesn't come under regulatory control. And if the same nutraceutical is sold in the form of a capsule, then it is regulated. So does even if it is sold in the form of a powder, does it require a clinical trial to be conducted?
So as per my understanding, the crude drug raw herb powder, if you are selling in a grocery store, will not attracting the regulations. Correct, sir?
Correct, sir. I have an example like in the same grocery store, it is for diabetes mellitus. It is sold in the form of powder, and they say that there is no regulation required. But at the same time, when I see the same formulation in the form of a capsule, it has to be regulated. That's why I've heard of. So I just wanted your point of view on this. Does it require clinical trial if it is in the form of a capsule, the same nutraceutical?
Yeah, clinical trials are required for nutraceuticals, provided the indication is different. See, for example, here the label does matter. So if unpacked thing, or I mean to say unlabeled or unpacked thing like a methi, simple methi, you can consider fenugreek seed, which are being sold across the retail stores or the grocery stores and all. Flax seeds are being sold as a supplements kind of thing. So ultimately, what does carry the label of the product? If they are giving a kg in a plastic pouch and telling it is advocacy, he is telling that it is good for diabetes. But if the same thing is being brought by a person, made into a powder, made into a dosage form, put a label stating that it helps in controlling the diabetes, then he need to substantiate the evidences for that particular. If that ingredient is known in the industry, I mean known in the literature, being used for that particular indication, he need not to have a clinical trial for specifically for that particular indication. And the foremost thing is the food supplements or the dietary products which are being sold in Indian market as on today, majority 95% of the products are contravening the label regulations. No such kind of thing should claim any disease on their label. So that is the number one mistake, is the wrong claims which they are not supposed to, even though it is beneficial, they are not supposed to claim directly that it is going to reverse the diabetes or it is going to treat the diabetes or cure the diabetes. That's it.
Thank you, sir. So with this, we come to an end of this very informative and very elaborate session. I think many of my doubts have been cleared with this session. And Madam Salma Khanna Madam has a question that is Schedule Z implemented?
No, ma'am.
Hello.
Madam.
Yes, madam, please.
Yeah, Schedule Z, actually it is included in our syllabus, but what I have seen is Schedule Z is not implemented, only a draft is prepared.
Correct, madam. I think
Is it correct?
yeah, you are right. You are right, madam. There is a strong lobby or industry is pressurizing. So
Why are they against it?
I don't have much idea on that particular. Sorry.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, so what I saw was 2011 or 12, draft was prepared.
Hmm.
After that, I think industry is opposing and many people are opposing. So after that, we don't know, but our syllabus has Schedule Z. So why I was a little confused. I thought you may throw some light on it. Okay,
No.
sir.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I request Professor Dr. Aki madam to conclude this session.
Thank you, Dr. M. Ravi Shankar, sir,
Thank you very
for,
much. Ma'am.
for accepting our invitation in spite of your busy schedule and for elaborating us with simple explanation on different phases of clinical trials, along with the challenges faced during clinical trials of herbal drugs. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With this, we come to an end of the day two session 6. The feedback link for this session, I'll be sharing it on the WhatsApp group for which you have to mandatorily give your feedback. And tomorrow's session will be starting at 9:30 a.m. And that is for day 3, session 7. The speaker for the session is Dr. K. Vijay Bhaskar, Professor, Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry, Manipal College of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Manipal. The topic is yoga, a tool of healthy and quality life. So I request all the delegates to please join the session at 9:50 a.m. And regarding the attendance, few of the delegates, they have certain queries that if you have not mentioned your name when you have joined the sessions, then the software doesn't take the data. So kindly rename yourself as per the name registered in the Airtel portal so that attendance can be marked automatically. Thank you. Thank you once again. We shall see you all tomorrow morning at 9:15 a.m.